Let's call the Grimes City Council meeting of February 24th, 2026 to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Johansson.
Here.
Earlbeck.
Here.
Phillips. Here. Lovelady.
Here.
Borkerding.
Here.
All right, thank you. And that brings us to approval of the agenda.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Phillips. Aye. Borkerding.
Aye.
Johansson.
Aye.
Earlbeck.
Aye.
Lovelady.
Aye.
All right, thank you. That brings us to public forum. Has anybody signed up for public forum?
Yeah, we have a few. First is Alex Aubert.
Step up to the podium, state your name, address, and then roughly 3 minutes. Yep. Thank you, sir. Yes.
My name's Alex Aubert. My address is 1900 Juniper Court. I live in Des Moines. I would like to thank you guys for the opportunity to speak today, city council members. Again, my name is Alex Aubert. I serve as the president for the Johnson Grimes Firefighters Union. First, I'd like to acknowledge the collaborative efforts between the city, the fire board, and department leadership that have allowed our fire district to operate at the level it does today. Delivering effective fire and EMS service is a shared responsibility, and we recognize the role policy and funding decisions play in maintaining that service. As our community continues to grow, so does the volume of calls for service within the fire district. Increased call demand can create gaps in coverage and extend response times, moments that matter when residents are facing an emergency. We are aware of the city's intent to pursue a 3% franchise fee to support the hiring of additional firefighters, as identified in Chief Coleman's budget proposal. While we understand that any new fee may create concern within the community, we also recognize that additional staffing directly improves coverage, reduces the likelihood of service gaps, and shortens response times with seconds count. This proposal is ultimately about ensuring that when a resident calls 911, there are sufficient resources available to respond without delay. We also understand the fiscal constraints placed on growing municipalities by recent state legislation. In that environment, alternative revenue sources must be considered to maintain the level of services that our citizens expect. On behalf of the Johnson Grimes Firefighters Union, we support the decision to pursue the 3% franchise fee as a responsible investment in public safety and in the long-term safety of our community. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Next.
Brian Hansen.
Okay, Brian.
My name is Brian Hansen. I live at 109 Northwest Callista Court in here in Grimes. I'm here once again to try to persuade the city council to not put this administration building in the valuable green space at Waterworks Park. I would like to talk about the reasons for this. So let's review. We have two new council members who were not here when this whole thing got started a year and a half ago. We have three members that were here under the old regime. I have yet to understand why the community was never offered a seat at the table of this discussion. Doesn't each member have the same power to voice their opinions, or do a few speak for the many? The main question I have is, how does putting this building in the middle of a well-used green space enhance a community? I'll let you ponder that for a minute. There are proven benefits of having recreational spaces in a city. There is not one reason how putting a building in this space would benefit anyone in this community except for the huge ego boost to the few select people here. Yet here we are watching you with these looks on your face, looking very proud of yourselves. This is a textbook example of why some people don't trust city government. Out of 5 members, we probably only need 3, I suppose, to put some value on the residents' opinions. I guess there are only 1 or 2 members, maybe all of you, that are steadfast in their opinions that pretty much say, we don't care what this town thinks, we know what is best. There are a few, if there is a few that care, stand up for this city. I don't see why this couldn't be a starting point for the development of Wallace Park. Placing this in Waterworks Park will not help the city employees be more productive or efficient. I know you have spent a lot of money without our input working on site plans for Waterworks Park. And I noticed there was something on the agenda tonight. So I'm sure you could pick up this building and place it in any different location without much trouble. You might say we spent all this money, so we have to put it there. The way I figured, you've made several mistakes, signing those expensive contracts before you've got community involvement, keeping it hidden from us. I'm sure you could figure it out. What do you do? What do you want us to do? Reward you for your bad behavior. We are continuing to get signers on our petition. We have over 400 signatures and that doesn't include the families they represent. So I'm here speaking for those 400 people that probably aren't here tonight, but do care about their community. They seem to have some, there are people in different parts of the town voicing their opinions, not just the people that surround the park. And they seem to have some virtues that some of this council is lacking. Even though they might not use this green space a lot, they seem to support what is important to others. I am sure you follow the comments made on the community page. As you have probably noticed, most do not agree with this plan to get rid of a large green space. As a matter of fact, the community has stepped up with some pretty good ideas. Let's make parks, part of the dog park. People like that idea. Updating the equipment, moving the special needs equipment from the community center outside here, over near the splash pad. I understand the splash pad is supposed to be handicap friendly. Makes sense to put them most together. Leasing the old building is a business that to a business that enhances the park, or more than a building in a large parking lot would. I believe you listed the cost, the work, and the cost that needs to be done to the old library. And I'm just questioning, is that the cost that keeps the building sound? Or is that what it makes it usable for your needs? There is a difference, and you seem to write your own narrative a lot of times. Highway 44 does not appear to be on any schedule for a number of years. This park belongs to the residents. Listen to them. You have the power to stop this and look at other sites that don't impact the community as much as this does. Admit you made a mistake in underestimating how the community would react, or maybe you knew this would be the reaction all along and just did it anyway. Make the decision for the residents and not your egos. I assume the city attorney has advised you did nothing illegal. I assume he doesn't counsel you in ethics. And then let's talk about quickly mention the fact that in our newsletter we got from in our water bills, it says, I'll read, while portions of the park will change, Waterworks Park will remain 75 to 80% open space with room for recreation. That's not true. According to the site renderings and stuff that were downloaded off of your website, it appears that, and not even including the splash pad, because it's not open green space. It's a splash pad. It has its own identity. It's not really part of the park anymore. And it appears that with the building and the massive parking lot you got going around this whole thing and getting rid of the library, you probably are taking 75 or 80% of the park that's left. And I brought some extra copies if anybody's interested in seeing this. So also I have a petition. The names on the petition that we have printed out, and we have probably over 400 now. And I don't know if I present that here or what we do, but I want you to be aware of people care. And then also to, and I guess it's kind of been brought to my attention, or I was asked to speak on this a little bit, was where the total cost of this this administration building has gone from $8.5 million to $10 million, and they haven't even broke ground yet. So just curious on why that is happening. So that's all I have, and I appreciate you listening to me and change your minds. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Anyone else?
Terry Golightly.
Okay, Terry.
Good Good evening, council. I'm going to start the same way I've started for the last month and a half. You're not listening. There is a lot of folks in Grimes that do not even know the plans for the park yet. I was sitting in the ice cream shop last Wednesday afternoon, supporting a local small business, speaking with a couple mothers and a grandmother that was in there. And they were shocked to hear of the plans for the park. Now, while that is not necessarily your fault, I think this has been a rush to push this through. First of all, my question is, who exactly is pushing the city? In other words, who is running the city, suggesting these projects, which are large money projects? Seems like we're on a money spending spree all of a sudden, in lieu of contraction, basically, in the economy right now, whether anybody wants to admit it or not. I have a direct question for council and staff, and I would like an answer after the meeting. When exactly is the widening of 44 supposed to happen? The city is an active partner with the DOT in projects such as this. And I have it from a very good source at the other organization that this is not even on their 5-year plan. So what is the hurry? Why now? Why push this through and start this spring? There's many things that can be done at the current park to augment what we have invested there. Specifically, the splash pad. That was a large investment. And it was a good investment for the city. And it does draw people from other communities to utilize that. Some other ideas just off the top of my head. Instead of making the park just a summer destination, how about a skating rink in the wintertime? The hockey teams in Des Moines sponsor a lot of cities to help that happen in small communities. Summertime, convert it to roller skating. Sand volleyball pits. Some more basketball courts, because basketball courts for people to practice or let their kids practice outside regular practice times seem to be really hard to come by in this area. This and many other ideas would preserve the park and the space and continue to allow the green space to be there in the heart of the city, in the center of the city. Last meeting, we were touted the revenues from the sportsplex, and that's great. But this is also a question I would like answered. Where are those revenues going at this point? Is it going to reduce the debt? And once the debt is paid off, what are the tentative plans for where that revenue is going to be placed in the city budget and what is going to be done with it? I truly believe that it is time for wards in this city and having council members that are specifically accountable to the residents in specific areas. And basically, again, I'm asking for answers. I'll be around after the meeting. And the biggest one I want is, what's the timeline on 44? And what planning has the city done as far as what they would like 44 to look like? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. Anyone else?
Yep. Kristen Hansen.
Kristen?
My name is Kristen Hansen, and I'm here tonight because I'm concerned about the park. Let's start with the timeline. On December 17th, the city released a timeline claiming when the public administration building was discussed in advance. When I looked back and pulled the actual agendas and meeting minutes, they don't line up. Several of the meetings listed on discussion points contain no meaningful reference to the public administration building at Waterworks Park. There was no clear deliberation, no clear vote, and no clear public-facing disclosure. So which record is accurate? The official agenda meetings or the timeline that appears on your guys' website after public scrutiny? The transparency page is a joke. You don't get to try and cover up and rewrite the record after the fact and call it transparency. If it was truly discussed openly and consistently, the minutes would reflect it clearly, and they don't. So let's stop pretending that this was a transparent process. On December 17th, you guys announced that Waterworks would be converted to the new administration building. And by your own admissions on your April 8th transcripts, the project was already underway. The project team was assembled in early 2024. Your architects were selected in July of 2024, and site selection was completed in October 2024. Public notice following operational finalization and financial entrenchment is not meaningful notice. December wasn't the beginning of the process. You wanted no real public input. Discussion, decisions were already made. Now let's go on to the policy. Waterworks is designated community park in your own comprehensive plan. Your own policy framework states that land use decisions must align with that plan. Yet there was no comprehensive plan amendment, no rezoning, no conditional use permit, no variances. Waterworks Park is not an empty lot. It is not surplus land. It's your own comprehensive plan designates this land as community park. It exists for recreation, for families, for kids to play baseball, for public use. And then let's also talk about the April 8th transcripts, where it was stated that the building should be visible, or the building should be visible because it was going to be a beautiful building. It was stated that Waterworks was chosen because you desired central location and you desired visibility. Visibility. Are we talking about converting parkland because you wanted the building to be seen? How can you remotely even justify changing dedicated park space because you want architectural visibility? If desired visibility is enough to convert parklands, then what protects the rest of the parks? Just because it looks good from the road doesn't mean it's a good choice. Your zoning. Your current city hall is located in a commercial district. That's where office buildings belong. Waterworks Park is zoned R1 residential and a park. There are no rezoning, no conditional use permits, no variances, no comprehensive plan amendments. And by Iowa code, zoning must be in accordance with the comprehensive plan. And calling it a civic building does not rewrite the zoning ordinance. It is not a park shelter. It is not a recreational facility. It is an 18,000 square foot government administrative office building. And the money. Public messages say this project costs $8.5 million. By your own amendment, 4 shows a design development estimate of $11,880,000. That's nearly $12 million. That is not a rounded difference. That's millions of dollars. So which number is real? Is it the 8.5 or almost the nearly $12 million that you've set aside for this project that you haven't disclosed? Because residents, we deserve accurate information, not marketing gimmicks and not marketing graphics from your website. And here's the part that I really don't get. If the site was selected in October 2024, why weren't the residents told in October 2024? Why were contracts signed, amendments executed, invoices approved month after month? Why did this move through strategic planning workshops and consent agendas without a clearly noticed vote selecting Waterworks Park? I don't understand it. I guess I would suspect that at the beginning of the process, if you wanted true transparency, that you guys would have had a vote back in October 2024 when you decided the location. And on what date, if there is any, can you clearly notice or cite when it took place, when the actual vote took place, or when any of that had taken place. I mean, if the site was lawfully selected in October of 2024, identify the vote. I don't think you guys can, because these decisions were made away from the public, and that's what breaks trust. You said the site was discussed publicly multiple times. Discussion is not the same as clearly noticed vote selecting Waterworks Park. When identified the comprehensive plan amendment under the rezoning solution number, there is none, because I have not found any record that says there's been any comprehensive plan amendment, no resolution number changing any zoning there. The design development estimate shows $11.8 million. If that number is inaccurate, please clarify then why that number was set aside and where you got the 8.5. There's a lot of things that have gone on with this whole project that have made this public has lost trust in their government because of this project, I believe. And I think that you guys should do the right thing and put it up for public, put it back into the community, let the community decide what they want to do with this building. We're not saying that you don't need a community building, okay? You don't need an office building. We're just saying, why the park? Why transform it out of visibility? Because you guys want it to be pretty from the road and have everybody drive by and see it. That is not a reason to change the Waterworks Park. This should have been put back to the community, and you guys failed to do that. And I believe that you guys should make it right and let the public vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, last one, Nick Reggio.
Okay, Nick.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, and City staff. My name is Nick Reggio. I do live out in the country in Dallas Center, but am the most recent small business owner and member of Grimes Chamber and Economic Development, as I just purchased a laundromat in Grimes. I'm here today to voice my concerns, very specific to the site location of City Hall, as well as the lack of leadership that's been shown within this group. Since these meetings are not supposed to have a back and forth or talking, I would just ask the people that have taken their time out to come here tonight, if I were to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, don't talk, on a scale of 1 to 10, if the city of Grimes were to be judged on their infrastructure and their planning and their future, would it be a 5 or less or a 6 or more? Don't judge. You know where I'm going with this. It's not good. It's not. This to me is another example where we can right some of the wrongs and not have a building like this literally be right next to an absolutely beautiful Waterworks Park splash pad that I wasn't a big fan of, but it doesn't matter what I think. I love it now. It's awesome. I'm totally proven wrong, and I'll stand up here and say that. But to have the ins and the outs of a city administrative building right next to something that we're attracting people from out of town, it just doesn't make a ton of sense. Leslie, who's not here, but I know she's listening online, something I noticed during your campaign was the amazing amount of time and effort and energy that you took going door to door talking to folks in the community. I didn't know who Leslie was beforehand, but I think she's a great addition to this council. So I were to ask you, Leslie, if you were to go today again and take that amount of time out and ask those same 700 to 1,000 people about this topic specific with the facts and the data, what would they tell you? And I asked that question because you were elected by those people that you went door to door and took your time out to do. But I feel that you're now not representing those people that actually came in and elected you. We've got to speak up for them. The next part, and where I'm kind of going with this, has to do with who's the leader in this group. Jake, I've heard you say a few times, not that you don't have a say, but you're kind of hamstringed or tied sometimes by what council says. Pretty public knowledge, Scott Mickelson and I didn't get along like best friends. But I knew when he was a part of this, who was in charge and where this was going to go. And that there was a path, there was a reason, there was a way. Right now, I don't feel that. Not one person has yet to come out and say, I voted for this. We paid money. Wallace Farms is what was decided by OPN as well as city staff, but we overrode that and chose this because of this reason. That's all we're looking for, is asking, why did you choose it? Why did you change? If it's truly centrally located, it'll almost make me laugh. Library is put in a place I would think it's supposed to be centrally located. Fire station, which is absolutely beautiful, centrally located. To be honest, it's not yet, right? It's future centrally located. How is this one now in the same topic of centrally located when it could just be moved about 1.5 miles down the road over to Wallace Farms, which is what the city staff and OPN recommended for it to do? I will not duplicate what the Hansons have said with regards to some of the other ideas as far as the old library, because to me, I don't want to say what you shouldn't do without coming up with suggestions. That old library is an additional 20 to 25 feet away from the potential expansion of Highway 44. I walked it myself because I was curious. Okay, so that building can stay there. It can be a cafe. It can be a dog park. It can be a lot of other things. It could be Parks and Rec with the fields right out behind it. There's so many things that it can be. So I ask you again, please, whether it's publicly, which would be nice, or privately, have an open discussion. Someone step up and take the lead on this and say, this is not worth it. The one thing that I've been told is they want it centrally located so that people will attend events like this. Could you imagine if every city council meeting was attended like this? You'd probably love it. It's community involvement. It's what you want. But I promise you, you could host this at a bar and give out free drinks. You could host it in people's living room. But if you don't listen to them, they will not come back. I don't care where you put this building. We will not come back because we're not listened to. Thank you.
Anyone else? So I'll just say, we've heard a lot of feedback about the building in Waterworks Park. We're listening, we really are. And I think the first item up tonight on the action portion will reflect that, but kind of just hold off until that item. Council, any comments anybody wants to make?
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I apologize, I'm battling the cold here, but there's a difference between listening and agreeing. And occasionally, as I've had conversations with many people who have a difference of opinion, right? And I don't think I've ever shied away from having a conversation with anyone. In fact, I typically stay after council meetings so we can have these conversations. As Mr. Reggio pointed out, I appreciate that you are in support of the splash pad now. You weren't before. I appreciate that you support the fire station now. You weren't before. I don't know if you support the Grimesplex now, but you weren't before. I don't know that we've had a project, Nick, in this community since I've been on for 10 years that you have supported. But it's good that after you've seen those come about, that you can recognize that sometimes we may not agree with one thing early, but then by and large, once it comes to fruition, that sometimes they can be actually benefits to the community. So all of that to say, you've had my cell phone number. We've talked before, but I don't think I've missed a phone call from you recently. We are open. We are open to having these conversations. We've had them in council meetings. They are open council meetings. Everybody is able to come speak. That's the beauty of our government, is that you do have a voice and you do get listened to. But listening and agreeing 100% of the time are two very different things. And so I'm happy to talk about areas where we may not agree on a location for something or a project to where we're spending money on or how we're spending money. That is what we do as council members, is we have to help share that information. What I think I've really appreciated about this process is when I have had those conversations, they have been respectful. I don't think there's a single person in here that I haven't had a respectful conversation about any of these projects with, even when we disagreed. Because at the end of the day, regardless of that we're all at large, we're all neighbors. We all live in the same community. We all shop at the same grocery stores likely in town, and we end up seeing each other, whether there or eating out or at a school event or anywhere else. And so that would be my hope. Please stick around. I'd be happy to talk to people after the meeting personally. Shoot me an email. I prefer to actually talk face to face than through email or on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook right now, taking a breather. It's good for the mental health. But happy to talk to anybody about any of these issues. I appreciate the comments that were made. We'll certainly keep those in mind as we go through agenda items.
Yeah, one more thing I would like to add is just thank you to our first responders here in the front row, and appreciate your comments and support in wanting to fund our public safety. It's really important.
Anything else?
Yeah, without reiterating what Mr. Johansson already said, I'm more than happy to stick around. Like I said, we've had conversations. I've had conversations with a few of you. To Eric's point, they've always been respectful. So I'll be more than happy to stick around as well afterwards and talk to anybody that wants to chat.
Yeah, Leslie, I just want to make sure I give you an opportunity if you had anything.
Not in particular. I echo, a lot of the responses there. And Nick, I heard your candor and your comment, and I do take it seriously. And when I was talking to folks in campaign mode, it was a two-way dialogue with folks, and those who raised questions or concerns or hopes for the city. I was honest in my obligation or my promise that I would uphold, which is to take those considerations into thought and into consideration as we move forward. And that doesn't mean, and I promise many people that doesn't mean that I would always probably vote in the way that they would want me to. But I think that represents a look at the larger picture of the community and doing what's in the community as a whole's best interest. And I am committed to doing that. And also, I think everyone throughout every process of every project or every decision can always reflect on what can we always do better going forward. And I know there's been some conversations around, looking forward, what does that look like, and how do we continue to work towards maintaining and building public trust. And so heard all of the comments as well, and I appreciate people taking their time and the commitment to the community.
Yeah, thank you, Leslie. Yeah, and I'll just add, I'll be sticking around after the meeting. I'm happy to talk. I'm happy to talk about public action items and minutes and postings and all that good stuff, because there were some comments about that, and it's thrilling stuff, and I'd love to chat about it. And speaking of transparency, we do have an item tonight about Waterworks Park. We also do have an item about some things we're trying to do to be more transparent or more accessible, however you want to phrase it or think about it. So just wanted to call that out. But with that, that'll take us out of public forum. That moves us on to approval of the proposed consent agenda.
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Borkerding.
Aye.
DePhillips. Aye. Johansson.
Aye.
Lovelady.
Aye.
Earlbeck.
Aye.
All right, that passes. And then that's going to bring us to action items. By the way, before we get going on action items, I just want to call out some young people in the audience. Thank you, Troop 171. They're here working on some merit badges, citizenship in the community, correct? Yep. So appreciate Scouts and what you guys do and your commitment to becoming better people. And I know it's probably a little hard for someone younger to sit through, but kudos to you gentlemen for being here. Item one, resolution 023726, approving professional services agreement with ISG Waterworks Park Phase 2 improvements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The action before you is indicated as a professional service agreement with ISG. ISG was since the announcement. Been a lot of commentary, some here tonight, some you're seeing social media platforms, but there's also a number of conversations that each of you are having. And I know that it has been a constant flood of information and feedback from a variety of folks, but one of the things that does appear consistent in all of those communications is some feelings associated with the loss of some of the playground equipment and some of the shelter equipment that's currently the older portion of the park on the western edge. So staff reached out to ISG to replace some of those features that are aging, deteriorating, maybe not some of the safety standards that we established. Look at what's there today, what would be removed from the project, what could be brought back in with the new project. So ISG was excited to be brought back for the project. They've developed a scope of service, some park design, some neighborhood engagement work. Plan on also including companies who did landscape design for edge treatments, buffers, no buffers, berms, no berms, that type of thing. The cost to perform the services, design and neighborhood engagement, $6,000. We believe a few $100,000 gets us the new playground, some additional trail connectivity, some sheltering. We're going to be looking at some other areas around the splash pad as well. That might, there's some other amenities. Picked away at a few of them. We had some shade structure a couple of years ago. Splash pad based on some feedback. So we're going to continue that. One other thing that doesn't really memorialize today, but didn't want to share. We've been working kind of behind the scenes with Civil Design Advantage and Confluence, who again did the kind of the site design, for the street. We've done some modifications to the parking area on the very northern end and moved basically the bank of parking on that southern edge. So that afforded quite a bit more green space on the north side of that parking. Kind of some seamless connection. Splash pad and space. Again, the request is to consider the resolution for the professional services agreement, and we would have a neighborhood engagement similar that we did Splash Pad Waterworks Park. So engage those are directly adjacent to the park in a meaningful way. So
Yeah, thank you, Alex. I know when ISG did the splash pad, I know there was really good engagement with that, and a real good process. And so, that was kind of the idea of re-engaging with them, because, we have heard people and we want to get your feedback on this, should it be for older kids? Should it be for younger kids? What kind of stuff should go there? Et cetera, et cetera. And so I think they're going to be a really good partner. Just to be clear, though, this is to help scope out what could be. This doesn't mean like X, Y, Z is going to absolutely happen. We want to use this to help us figure out what it could be and then decide if it should be, right? The other thing, just to be really clear, I think, as was sort of mentioned, amongst all the different feedback, I feel like this is kind of the big common element of feedback, is trying to get this green space and park amenities back in there. And so that's what we're trying to achieve. But I just want to be clear, the building is going there. The contracts have been signed. We've looked into the different avenues around that. And at the end of the day, the building is going there. But we want to be good neighbors. We want to do the right thing. We want to try to figure out how can we get that park there? How can we get the park, the type of park stuff in there that the citizens want? And so this is our avenue to direct us in that direction. So council, any other questions or comments for Alex?
Yeah, Alex, I'm just, how much more green space is this adding from what was the current plan? How much more green area, I should say? Yeah, so, I mean, previously, that parking kind of. And that was with some intent. You know, some of that initial feedback that we heard after the splash pad was built was, shelter being kind of a long distance from the parking proved to be a little challenging for people that had birthdays and that type of stuff. So that is really why that parking was pushed back up there, because that was really kind of the intent to be that park splash pad area. But it dropped down, I believe, 90 feet from kind of where it was up there down to kind of, to give you a frame of reference, this space right here, which is still a green space, but this is like just like flat lawn, is larger than Autumn Park, out west. It's similar in scale and size to Basin from Kennywood Park, very similar in Chauver, that size of park. So just from a massing and like programming perspective, it's comparable to many parks in the community. So it's not necessarily small.
Would everything that we have today, if we were to replace it, would it fit in that area? I know one of the biggest things I heard was the safety concern of the parking lot going all the way up to the green space. So I do appreciate eliminating that so that can be separated a little bit more. With your construction costs, is that including park equipment too? Or is that? So I'm assuming that would fluctuate based on what the community is telling us they actually want.
Okay. It'd give you like a frame of reference. The Lions Park playground, that was $300,000 for the playground. That's very large playground equipment, not necessarily scale because of this. So working your way down. Shade structures. The flexibility absolutely exists to leave just long space as well. So that dollar amount can fluctuate based on program the space or not.
Yeah, and when we get to that aspect, and ISG gets those meetings kind of set up and whatnot. I mean, obviously, we're gonna make that available on the website, social media, etc. To let people know.
I know there's more ample time to talk through what the plan is for here and get feedback. But I'll just advocate, as I try to always do, that we ensure that we make this fully accessible and stick with where we've decided as a community to continue to move forward as being overly accessible for everybody.
Council, any other comments or action?
I will move resolution 02-3726, approve professional services agreement, ISG Waterworks Park Phase 2 improvements.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further comments?
Discussion. Alex, question. I didn't get it in. Sorry, before your
No, it's all
motion.
right.
So taking the second stab here.
That's why I never
From a budgetary standpoint, I'm assuming this would be in this year's park budget are you thinking for the ISG contract, or where we budgetarily?
For the ISG contract?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The improvements, I'm assuming, would be in next year's, the FY 27 budget.
Yeah, so the 36,000, the carry you through like that scoping and
Yeah.
neighborhood engagement is certainly covered by park capital funds that are available.
Okay, and then from our experience, I know we've used ISG. We've also, I believe, done some of this internally at times.
Yep.
Take me through the difference and why we think it's best to use ISG in this case.
Yeah, so our internal capabilities are going to be limited to kind of your very most basic of, I mean, they're very good at drawing roadways and water main straight lines. But when you get into park elements, it gets a little more complicated, particularly with like playgrounds. First being the type of surfacing that you choose, whether or not it's like a port in place surfacing or a synthetic turf, which we've kind of used both, does require an under drain system that has to be designed to accommodate that. Those are skills that we just don't necessarily have in house from like a drainage perspective. There's also certain requirements with respect to like fall zones and making sure that like certain playgrounds fit in certain designs. So when you're getting into like this like detailed design, the consultants are just better fit for that type of thing. Not that we can't certainly do some minor park things, like we've done trails and parks and that type of stuff, but this is starting to get a little kind of beyond.
Will they look at activating the detention basin as well? If there's a way to, and by activating, obviously we can't build in that, but to make that as amenable as possible.
Yeah, those were some of the conversations I had with ISG. We're really looking at what do we have today from like a balance sheet perspective, and what are we replacing? Is it in the same quantity, the same scale? That's kind of be some of that engagement will sort it out, but also was challenging them to look at what are some other unique things that we can do. I cite like maybe some of the work that we did up at Kennybrook Park with that detention basin. Are there things that can be done kind of with the design that we have to enhance that? But also around the splash pad that they designed too. I know that there were some additional improvements that just based from a budget perspective that we weren't able to do at the time that we built the splash pad. Can some of those be brought in? Are they still warranted? Let the neighborhood kind of weigh in on that.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, there was a motion and a second, so roll call, please.
DePhilip,
Aye.
Lovely,
Aye.
Earlbeck,
Aye.
Johansson,
Aye.
Forkerding.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to item number 2, Northeast Destination Drive Extension Phase 2. Matt is going to give us some background, and then we'll have a public hearing.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Give you kind of a background here. This kind of a map that was put together back in 2022. It kind of shows a path that we took to kind of get these destination drive connections done between where it leaves off at Menards at that kind of the south end, and then where it connects up to Northeast 18th Street. You got different sections there that were green, blue, yellow. The green was a previous project that we did. We did the intersection on 141, and then the developer did the green part that built the roundabout and Beaverbrook connection to get across there. The developer also did build the yellow piece there that was adjacent to their development. And then we had agreements in place for developer contributions for what would be the south leg is what we bid. We bid and awarded that last month. And then we have what we call the north leg, which is the section up here. And that's the section that we're talking about here tonight. We've also worked with the DOT on the project a little bit to get some extra funding. We've got some U-step funding that we got from them. We also worked with them on, they were going to do a project in their capital improvements to do some more work on that right turn lane that goes on Northeast 18th Street, coming from the corridor study that Johnston and Grimes and Polk County did a few years ago. That was kind of identified as a connection that the DOT wanted to take off of 141. And so since the plan was to do that and we had plans to do these projects, we could connect those together, and they decided to take that money that they were going to spend on that and give that to us to help with the project over here. So we have in total from the DOT with all these projects about $700,000 that we're getting from them to help pay for this. And then the rest of it is developer contributions through the development agreements that we've had with the people out in this area. We did bid this project. This one actually was bid 2 weeks ago. It was kind of bid in that time frame in order to avoid conflict with the DOT bid for the month. We had pretty decent bids. We had 7 bidders on this project. We ended up, thankfully, with the contractor that won the south one. Also ended up winning the north one too, which really gives us some good continuity with the contractor working on the same 2 projects. They were a couple $100,000 underneath our engineer's estimate. So it ended up where our engineer's estimate was kind of right in the middle of all the bids. So we had about 3 above and 4 below the engineer's estimate. So that's always good to see, because it means it was, and they had a good go by with the south one that they just bid to come up with their estimate too. So that helps with that too. We're planning on having the notice proceed for the project in April of this year. And the contractor will have to substantially complete the project within 75 working days. They'll have $1,000 per calendar day for substantial completion. And then they'll have 5 additional working days to get the final completion done, with 500 for that. Tonight, we're actually going to hold the public hearing and do the resolution where we adopt the plan specs, former contract, and cost estimates. We do have another meeting before we have the development agreement for that north part on the agenda for March 10th. So we're actually going to delay the award and the contracts and bonds approvals until that meeting for that reason, so that we can all kind of have those done together. Other than that, like I said, we did have some public engagement that was involved with the 141 corridor study. All the people in this area were invited at that time to come to those meetings. Johnston was the lead on that particular one. But at that time, the discussions were made with taking Northeast 18th Street off of Highway 141. And so it's not a new plan that we have out there that we're just all of a sudden going to take it off of 141. We do also plan to, between now and when we start construction, to have another public engagement or public information meeting where people can come in and see what we're planning on doing for both projects, and kind of have an idea of what's going on in the area. Another thing of note, the South project here will have that extension there, and we're rearranging the Mid-American has their substation out there with their entrance off of 141 right now. That's going to be removed off of 141, and then it's going to come off of Destination Drive instead. So really what the DOT wants is many of those accesses pulled off of 141 as possible, and it's all purely, safety reasons and stuff for that. And that we have one resolution tonight that we recommend approval of that, and then we'll have the reward and everything else at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. That brings us to, we'll open the public hearing on plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Northeast Destination Drive Extension Phase 2. Would anybody wish to address council on this specific item? Hearing none, did we receive any written communication?
We have not.
Okay. I will then close the public hearing. That brings us to resolution 023826. Adopting plan specs, form of contract for Northeast Destination Drive Extension Phase 2. So I'll just start off and say, I'm very excited about both these. Anytime we can get connectivity, especially on corridors right off 141 to then alleviate some of that traffic, I think is good and wanted by citizens from what I've heard. And especially also, I know a lot of people have been looping around and coming through on Beaver Brook, which after the roundabout is pretty residential. And so this potentially will help feed some people north, kind of taking that route. And I think that'll be very welcome by those residents too. So improving the traffic is it's a thing we hear, and so it's exciting to just chip away at that.
Yeah, it's a constant battle.
I will just echo those comments, and then I appreciate the city and not only of Grimes, but of Johnston, working with the DOT. And again, this is part of a much broader discussion on what 141 will look like moving forward. And it's ironic to some extent that we have our public safety professionals here, both with Polk County Sheriff's Office and our Johnston Grimes Fire Department, because this is an area that certainly is less than stellar from a safety perspective. And so part of what we have to look at in these situations is how do we reduce that risk for severe accidents. And this is one of those areas that the DOT, and I think all of us can agree, is not a great area to try to get across 141 to make a left-hand turn. Better if there's not an access point there that's uncontrolled. So I agree with closing it down. I'm glad we're making this change, and appreciate the DOT's partnership in this, both in leading those meetings and then financially to make it happen.
Any other comments, questions, or action?
Nothing else. I'll move resolution 02-3826, adopted plan specifications, form of contract and estimate.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Workman,
Aye.
Johansson,
Aye.
Earlbeck,
Aye.
Lovelady,
Aye.
DePhillips.
Aye.
Okay, and that motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to more Matt. So Southwest 19th Street and Southwest Jazzwood Drive overlay.
So this is a project that you kind of heard about coming up to this. We've had a lot of activity going on out here. I can see on the map here, you've got the red lines there are overlay limits, and then we got a blue line there that's showing a water main that we're going out to bid after this meeting for. And you got some of the development action that is kind of anticipated to happen out in this area. You got 4 of them already out there. Kind of shows that we've decided, we've invested in some of these improvements out there, and it's paying off with developers going out and starting to build more lots and do more things out there for the city of Grimes and expand our base there. We also have this project is right on our border with Johnson, or with Urbandale, sorry. So we have the Southwest 19th Street section that's kind of their Meadows Drive. That section, we were in a previous 2080 agreement with them on the 142nd Street project. This was included in that with them to do a 50-50 cost share on the overlay project with us. So they will be participating financially on that section of it. And we'll obviously Jazzwood will be all of us because it's not next to them, but they will be participating on that section. And so when the summer is over, we should have the 142nd Street, which is County Line Road, down to 37th Street paved. And then we'll have these roads at 19th Street and Jazzwood up to Highway 44 all paved. And everything kind of in this area and this grid structure out here of the mile arterial is kind of reinforced with some paved streets. We did bid this one last Tuesday. We had 4 bidders, which was kind of surprising. We usually only get like 3 because there's only 3 people that do asphalt in this area. The bids came in really well. They were all under the estimate that we had. The estimate was 1.8 and they came in about 1.5. The low bidder was Des Moines Asphalt and Paving out of Johnston. And we've worked with them on numerous projects too, and they've been in the area. We've also have a couple of items that we are still requesting from them, and then we have some other coordination items with concurrence of bid award with Johnston or Urbandale that we need to do. And so we're also going to do the public hearing and the adoption like we did at the last one, but we're going to push the award in the contracts and bonds approval until the March 10th meeting for this one also. This one has about 30 working days to get it done. It's an asphalt project. These don't take as long to do. So they'll have 30 working days with $500 per calendar day liquidated damages. We're anticipating it to be started after April 1st sometime. And it shouldn't take them too long to get it done. And that's about all I had.
So that'll bring us to the public hearing on plans, specifications, form, contract, and estimate of cost for Southwest 19th Street and Southwest Jazzwood Drive overlay. We will now open the public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak on this specific item? Okay. Hearing none. Any written communication?
No, sir.
Okay. I will go ahead and then close the public hearing, and that brings us to resolution 02-3926. Council, questions or comments for Matt?
Yeah, so are they gonna shut that down altogether when they're paving it?
While they're paving it, yes,
Okay.
they'll
Is
shut
that
it down, but it'll be asphalt, so it should be like intermediately open back up with like the base surface, and then they'll come back and put this other surface, like just like when you were driving on Highway 141 to the north, they were doing them in layers, and you can drive on the layers in between. So, but when they're actually putting it down, they'll be running down the street and completely blocking it. But
You know how much time that's gonna be completely shut off to traffic? And will that, I guess where I'm going with that, is that gonna be congruent with also shutting off James Street, so we have no way to go south?
with you talk about the 142nd Street
Yeah,
one.
Yep.
Yeah, I need to work out some of that timing with that. With James, we shouldn't have anything completely closed off. With that detour that would be in place for that, the piece that is going to be shut down would be up here, and that should be a short shutdown. The one we had the boards up for here this week. So the ones as you're heading south on James Street, north-south traffic will be maintained while we're doing that next phase.
Okay.
So the detour around should be open for that one.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
While
they're
they're
not
doing
both
it.
shut
Yeah.
down at the same time.
Yeah, we were having to coordinate quite a bit between the two or three projects that we've got going on now, 4 projects that we got going on all out in that area right now. So,
Okay, thank you. Matt, along those lines that Councilmember Lovelady brought up, part of this area is being developed from what was farm field to not to urbanized area. There's also farms, and we're talking about April. And so what's the communication like in making sure that those that are still being farmed and the farmers who are looking to get in the field to hopefully plant? Ideally, it's before then, but April 1 causes me a little bit of
we have
consternation.
We have a lot of conversations we have with some of the tenant farmers, especially in that area in particular. So we have we know who some of those people are and who's farming which farm. I've talked to a couple of farmers already out there in that area with the James Street and 19th Street project. Like how he's going to get around and get into a particular farm field or something. It's just going to be a coordination thing with them. If we need to make sure that they have access at a certain time or for a certain reason, if they can come off of a different road and do an access into a field, or if that's the only one, we'll just have to work with them and make sure they can get in.
Perfect. Please do. I've a lot of times we get focused on the project, how great it'll be for everybody who's living in the town, and I don't want to lose sight that we do have neighbors that are still farming that area. And so this is some of the struggle that we go through when urbanization kind of leapfrogs what's still farming community. So appreciate your work.
So, yeah, very good points from both of you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I just want to say thanks to city staff for working on it. I mean, I think this is be nice to have the overlay on those. I think a lot of people will appreciate that. And also leveraging the partnerships with other communities to make sure we get this done on that 50-50. So appreciate the effort there.
Yeah, and I have one question, Matt, and I don't want to get like too into the weeds here, but this is a good example. This question I've received from people, and I know like myself and you and Alex have talked about it, but we're doing an overlay, and some people have said, well, why don't you do like the full pavement and all this and that? And when you do that, that comes at a cost because you're laying down a quite significant structure that doesn't necessarily, the type of traffic doesn't necessarily merit that. And so you're paying a lot up front for just to sit there and then to have to come back and replace it as it deteriorates over time when it didn't really get its use.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that
Sure.
briefly?
Yeah. Like you have ultimately 19th Street is going to probably be a 4-lane boulevard section with median. That's a very expensive cross section of street to build to go through that section. So it's going to be a kind of a big undertaking when we get to that point. You build something like that, and then you have low traffic volumes on it when it didn't really need to be that big, that fast. So sometimes there's ways you can build, like we did with James Street to the north or south. They built the 2 lanes on one half of the boulevard and then use those head to head for X amount of years. And then when you need it, you make the boulevard section. That just kind of gets the aging start date on your infrastructure pushed out later. And then it makes it last longer, obviously, because you're not building it and it's not under the weather and all the other stuff that deteriorate our concretes and pavements like in Iowa. And then for, the near term, this roadway will serve the needs we need, and it'll have the surface that we need to have it on instead of a gravel surface.
And if I can attempt to make a really poor analogy, but I'll try, it'd be kind of like somebody doesn't anticipate having a family of 6 for 10 years, but buys a 10-passenger van today, and then you're paying for this huge van that you're really not even getting the use of, and all the maintenance and et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of like that mentality. Like we don't want to overpay for the infrastructure that's just really not needed for quite a while.
Well, and then we can also do a lot more because this cross section and overlaying like this doesn't cost as much. So we can do so much more to get out to these areas that we need to get to and help support some of this activity that's happening out there.
Yeah. And I'm excited when it's done because it gives different avenues to come around from the high school down to 19th and out, or from Oakview and around, et cetera. And so for those school events out there, I think these will be a really good addition.
Yeah.
So, Council, any other questions or action? Yes, sir.
So, your investment in staff.
Right. Oh, thank you for that, Alex. I appreciate that recognition. Appreciate staff too.
Nothing further. I'll move resolution 02-3926, adopting plan specifications from contract estimates, 19th Street, Jasmine overlay.
A second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Borkerding,
Aye.
Lovely.
Aye.
Phillips. Aye. Johansson.
Aye.
Earlbeck.
Aye.
All right, thank you. That passes. And nice job, Matt. Appreciate that. That brings us to item 4, ordinance 810, establishing standards for small wireless facilities. Kevin.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. Kevin Hensley, Public Works Director. What you have before you tonight is we're going to have a public hearing on ordinance 810, establishing standards for small wireless facilities, and then holding the first reading for that ordinance. I was hoping that my background was in there, but it evidently is not. I apologize for that. So what this is establishing, as stated, establishing standards for small cell. What small cell is if you've driven down maybe Jordan Creek Parkway, Mill Civic Parkway, any of the larger corridors, you may have noticed on the traffic, or not the traffic signals, but rather the street lights themselves, you may see some antennas, some cellular antennas on those poles. And what this does is establishes standards for our cellular carriers to put that infrastructure in here for the city of Grimes. Cellular carriers are typically using this to infill some dead spots that they may have in coverage areas. So along with this comes some fiber that they'll have to install in the ground and also power. So this is all done through our right-of-way permitting process. And really what we've done is come in line with all state and federal laws allowing this infrastructure to be installed within the right-of-way. So that's what this is doing, essentially. Happy to answer any questions. Sorry, my background wasn't in there. I had a nice, pretty picture of a small cell antenna as well.
That's all right, Kevin. You did a nice job. So that'll bring us to the public hearing on ordinance 810, establishing standards for small wireless facilities. So we will now open that public hearing. Anybody wish to comment on this specific item?
Go ahead and step up to the.
Yeah, can we have you at the
please.
podium just so we could have it recorded? Sorry. No, that's all right.
So will this be in residential areas also that they're going to have these antennas? Or just mainly in the thoroughfares?
Kevin Hensley, Public Works Director. So the city doesn't have really any say in where they can be placed. We do have a say in the aesthetics of them. We have to allow these by federal law and state regulation. We have to allow these antennas where our cellular carriers see them as needed. Primarily, what I would say is that where I've seen them being installed is in those larger corridors. That's where I've seen them primarily installed, but I can't necessarily say that they would not ever be in a residential area.
Okay. Kevin, you know, again, since
So,
that's
so
pretty much where.
I want you to ask you two questions, Terry, but so again, it's public comment. So if you can make your comments and then Kevin connect with you and
Okay.
answer them after the meeting.
So my concern is I understand doing additional coverage for cellular. My concern is, again, with the newer technologies, you have some different requirements than used to be around for cellular stuff, specifically 5G. Smaller antennas, let's call them antennas, are going to fill in gaps. And if they're primarily have been seen in the corridors, then we can assume that this provides overlay so there's not gaps for whoever the carriers would be to provide service in a community is pretty much what we're trying to do with this and come up to speed with other communities in the state, city, state, and federal. Yes. Is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and feel free to connect and get some more questions answered there, Terry. Okay. Anybody else wish to address council on this item? Hearing on any written communication?
Oh, we got one here.
Oh, yeah, come on. State your name and address, please.
Dick Peepo, 1501 Northeast Park Street. And as I understand this, the government dictates access to communications. Right. And so the whole gist of this is, and I'm very proud of Grimes, is that Kevin's job is to keep the city of Grimes looking nice, neat, orderly, well planned, and aesthetically beautiful. And I love Grimes, got a lot invested here, so I would encourage supporting that because he's really after keeping the city looking good. Right?
Yes.
Thank you. I support that.
Oh.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. All right, any written communication?
Nope.
All right, with that, we'll close the public hearing. And that'll bring us to the first consideration of ordinance 810 establishing standards for small wireless facilities. Council, any questions or comments or action?
I appreciate the background. I think you hit the nail on the head. We are not allowed as a city we've been preempted on wireless by both the state and the federal government. And so we're very restricted on what we can do as a city, both in wireless and really most utilities. So when somebody digs up your backyard to put new fiber in for internet, we don't really have control over that. That's those companies. And so appreciate the wireless carriers because I do like it when I turn my cell phone on and can make the call and it actually goes through. These are necessary evils, and I understand why the cell carriers would rather have one, national or statewide set of criteria that they can get through. I also appreciate the work that staff has put in to, number one, ensure that we're in line and adhering to state code, but number two, in the areas where we can have discretion, exerting that to, as Mr. Depot alluded to, making sure that Grimes looks good, because that's what we care about as well. So appreciate your work on this one, Kevin.
Thank you for those comments, Councilmember Johansson. Anybody else?
And Kevin, pardon my ignorance on this topic, but these antennas, are they multi-use antennas, meaning all carriers are using it as a transmit point, or is it carrier specific?
Each antenna would be carrier specific. So if Sprint wanted to be on one pole, Verizon would be on another pole, and they would have their own infrastructure into each set of antennas.
Is part of the regulations that we have to abide by, do we have any say in quantities that they put up around town?
Not really. No. The comforting thing here is that they're not going to put more up than's needed.
Okay.
Right? They know where their dead spots are. They know where they're trying to infill. So they're not just going to willy-nilly just start throwing infrastructure up. This is a significant investment for them to put these antennas up. Again, it's not just as easy as sticking some of the antennas on a street light pole. There's significant engineering that has to go in in order to do this, as well as in a lot of cases they're having to the street light pole will have to be replaced with one with a foundation in it in order to support that additional weight. So there's significant investment from our cellular companies that in order to put this infrastructure in. So it's not necessarily going to be haphazard all over the place.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right. You kind of hit what I was going to say next, that there's an engineering aspect too. They're just not going to throw 5 of them on and the light pole is going to look like a Swiss Army knife that's unfolded. It's
correct.
Yeah, they have to go through the calculations and make sure you can hold it and all this and that. And
yes,
it's going to be a cost to that. So
absolutely, it has to match aesthetics as well.
Mhm.
So I mean, that's the whole point of doing this.
Yep. All right, council, any action here?
I'll move the first consideration of ordinance 810 establishing standards for small wireless facilities.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Johansson.
Aye.
DePhillips.
Aye.
Earlbeck.
Aye.
Lovelady.
Aye.
Porkerdy.
Aye. All right, that passes. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, I would ask if there was a lot of discussion about this, but if you would consider waiving second and third reading for final passage.
Are we on a time constraint for it?
We do have some permits waiting. We can continue to have them wait. It's not a problem.
I don't necessarily have an issue with it. Ideally, we'd have one more meeting, given that we did overwhelmingly positive comments, but I'd prefer to have one more hearing.
That's fair.
Opportunity, I think, for the public, given that even though, as we pointed out, our hands are largely tied on all of this wireless stuff. They get to do what they want. They got it through the state legislature and they've gotten it through on the national level. So Now that said, it's generally better to have at least one more. So to the extent that they can wait another 2 weeks, we do have a meeting in 2 weeks, right? Yeah,
Should be fine.
that would be great.
Okay, thank you.
I would agree with that sentiment, Councilmember Johansson. All right. That brings us to item 5, Resolution 02-4026, approving revised economic development incentive policy for the city of Grimes. Kate?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Katie Lord, the city's Economic Development Director. Tonight, I'd like to provide some background information and context around the revised incentive policy included in your packet for consideration. Revising our economic development incentive policy has been on the City Council strategic plan for a couple of years. And it's taken some time to get to know the community and sort of how we land insofar as a competitive landscape within the metro here. So a lot of what I'll be presenting tonight is based on what I have compared us to insofar as tax rates, other available incentives, and then what we really want to try to focus on for growth on the non-residential side here in Grimes. Tonight is I would consider it a tweaking of our existing policy. So I think when we're looking at doing a large overhaul, this is step one of two likely, and maybe, future as well. Tonight, I hope our revisions will get us to where our existing policy can be seen as competitive and providing more direction for the market. And then I'll come back later this year with some new programs to consider. So you could ask the question of why do we even use incentives? I think it's important that we, take a step back and understand the kind of playing field that we're trying to level here. Incentives are offered in every community that we compete with. It's just a fact of how we continue to do business. It's important to note that when we negotiate incentives, we're always thinking about what's the public benefit, what's the average Grimes resident getting out of the city investing our public dollars into these projects. We invest money to make specific things happen on specific timelines. It's usually to incentivize a certain type of business or product, real estate product, to incentivize a critical transportation network connection that we're trying to achieve. It could be a redevelopment project. There's all kinds of reasons, but really it comes back to that public benefit. And when we think along those lines of how are we protecting the city and how we use incentives, our policy will continue to be on a rebate award structure. So that's a safeguard for the city in that all of our awards are based on the taxable valuation increase that's seen as a result of an investment in the community. That new tax revenue we're able to rebate back to the developer under the terms that we come to agreement on. So we're continuing to protect our existing tax base as well as our future tax base by incentivizing additional growth. Additionally, our incentive policy here in Grimes is strategic and specific to projects. It's not automatic. Some communities do have policies that are just off the shelf. So if you meet these set of criteria, you qualify and could come essentially ask you all to just sign their development agreement. That's not the case here in Grimes. And I think we seek to improve upon that and to do better and to make sure we're investing in really strategic ways. And that's what our policy aims to do. So we'll run through a number of changes proposed tonight, but there's a lot that remains the same. So a lot of our philosophy around how we use incentives is still continued in this next version of our incentive policy. You all retain complete discretion over how you use incentives. You're able to offer them as you see fit. This is a policy document that's really seen as a guide. It's here to help us direct the market to what we would like to see occur. I think we would love to have maximum flexibility, and sometimes that comes without a policy, but it's really helpful to have some things written down, give folks an idea on what do you want to see and where. And it also is important to make note of what's not included. That's also reflected in a policy as well. We've got a number of items that continue to protect the community. Right now, there's a lot of discussion at the State House around legislative changes that could impact our ability to use TIF. Could impact even further how we are able to gather property tax revenue. So we do have language in this policy, as we've had previously, that protects us and makes sure that we're able to protect our investment insofar as making those tax payments if that revenue stream does change. We always require maximum incentive caps. There's no change there. We'll continue to support infrastructure costs first. So we know there's a big public benefit to the community when we help buy down the cost of infrastructure for a project. And in some cases, that means those infrastructure connections get done sooner to the benefit of everyone involved. There's no difference in what's proposed tonight. Lastly, the Southern Heights Incentive is a program that's been on it addresses some gaps on the southwest side of the community for our limited light industrial uses. I'd like to table any changes related to this incentive for a future policy discussion around how we support kind of sizable infrastructure investments that I think are continued to be needed on this side of town. So you won't see any changes tonight related to that part of our incentive policy. Our policy starts off with a number of just general policy statements around how we use TIF and how we contribute. So one area that I've done some research on that I feel like Grimes has been at a disadvantage compared to some of our neighbors is our cost of legal fees associated with our development agreements. For reference, a standard development agreement here in Grimes for legal fees only is in excess of 10 grand typically. That's a pretty big request of a developer coming in. I think there's a desire to cost share a small part of that to show that we recognize there are barriers to doing development in our community and everywhere. So for context, I've talked to my peers about this. Some cities pay full freight. They pay every single legal fee associated with the development agreement, amendments, et cetera, which could be a high bill for any community. There are others where, like we are currently, where we do request developers to pay full freight. So I'd like us to contribute something. I think 2,500 is still conservative insofar as the total amount, but does indicate that we are looking to help support and remove a small barrier to developing here. When we get to the governor's district incentives, you'll see that I'm recommending we pay all of our legal fees, and I've got some safeguards and changes to that incentive, which I think help make that more achievable for us to support development there. So two programs that I'd like to suggest some tweaks to. Our first one is our Class A office incentive policy. We've had this on the books for a number of years. I've done research and would recommend that the structure as a 10-year sliding scale rebate remains the same. This is still really competitive with our neighbors, with what folks are seeing in the market. But what I would like to do is to expand the definition of what's eligible under this program to include commercial mixed use. So this would require a building size of around 30,000 square feet. 50% of that would need to be office and would allow for a single floor, first ground floor retail. This is a product type that we've seen in successful walkable commercial mixed use districts that I think we desire here in the community as well. So increasing and allowing more flexibility for this incentive, I think makes sense. The 30,000 foot requirement came from a number of different projects we've seen across the metro that would fit under this category. I would say often these projects are even quite a bit larger, but I think 30,000 square feet is an appropriate size for Grimes. It also goes to show that we're trying to incentivize significant square footage that can add to our daytime population with allowing space for additional jobs in the community. I have received a number of requests since I started working here for office space. I don't have a way to respond. There could be some small pockets here and there, but anything of a decent size, we simply lack here in the community. So we hope to continue to fill that while offering some additional flexibility. $150 per square foot indicates that high quality expectation insofar as building materials and aesthetics. And so really with these changes, we're continuing to identify what it is that we do want and also clarifying that single-use medical facilities are eligible so long as they meet all other requirements associated with that. And that also helped contribute and support that 30,000 square foot minimum. So next we've got the governor's district. So we all are familiar with the downtown assessment that was done last year. There was a lot of feedback we heard throughout that process, and we did have some focus groups specifically with developers that do redevelopment or development in these types of districts throughout the community or in actually central Iowa. We talked with them about look at our incentive policy. What do you think? Their feedback, in addition to my research on how we were lacking a bit on the strength of our TIF incentive in this area, leads me to suggest an enhanced incentive. Previously, we had a 5-year standard sliding scale, so that's 75% down to 15% TIF tax rebate. I'm recommending a 5 years at 90%. So this is definitely a strengthening. I think it indicates that we're willing to invest at a higher level in this area to see redevelopment occur. I think it's important to note, and when we look at, how do we stack up competitively, some of our competitors in the Valley Junction area offer 5 years, 100%. In Uptown Ankeny, they have a 10-year program that's an abatement program, so that's next level. And then in Waukee, they have probably 4 or 5 different programs to support different types of incentives. So I know that this is raising the bar for incentives down here in the governor's district, but I do think it reflects what we've seen in the downtown assessment insofar as supporting continued commercial uses, allowing upper story housing to be considered eligible so long as it's paired with first floor commercial. Solely residential projects will not be considered eligible. And then additionally, these projects must increase property value by $250,000 to qualify. So and talking with our building official and just general knowledge of construction, this would allow us to capture some significant renovations for existing buildings, but would really indicate new construction that could take advantage of this heightened incentive. So I mentioned I'll be coming back later this year to talk about other programs. One we've talked through for the governor's district and have heard about through the downtown assessment is a facade improvement grant. So there's some ways we can help continue to promote a vibrant district, but that is not necessarily related to additional property tax generation. Additionally, because we are increasing values by at least 250, I felt that having a higher bar for an investment would indicate that we're able to invest more heavily in this area by waiving the legal fees. I think it's also on us to help reduce those legal fees across the board that we're seeing. So I'm working with our attorneys on standardizing some processes so we can help streamline that and reduce the cost for everyone. 2 additional programs I mentioned before are Southern Heights incentive on the southwest side. This is for limited light industrial. Again, I'd like to table this one for future discussion and come back and talk about infrastructure more broadly. Excuse me. And then lastly, the Polk County Industrial Property Tax Exemption or Abatement Program. The City Council's authorized this for many years. It's been widely used and successfully used in our community, predominantly for high cube warehouse, distribution centers, et cetera. Wrapping it into our incentive policy just acknowledges to folks that may not be familiar with this area that this incentive is allowed here. So for next steps, so tonight is our initial round of updates or minor tweaks to get our policy to where I think we'll be have a bit more direction for the market on what we would like to see in specific areas. And then I'll come back again later this year to talk about infrastructure, facade improvement, or other ideas to support governor's district or other areas of town. And then lastly, there's a desire to continue to think through how we support entertainment and hospitality businesses. Those are businesses that have really high startup costs. And so just thinking through what can we do to help promote those uses in our community, since that's something we all want to see. I would recommend approval, and I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you for that, Katie. I just have some comments, and then council, that you have some questions and comments, but I'm not in my time in council, I've never been a hugely excited person with incentives. I always like to joke, nobody incentivized me to move here other than it being a great community. But we hear repeatedly, people want restaurants, they want these other businesses, and the cities don't build restaurants. But we can create environments that then can promote people wanting to come here and do that. And so like one way we've heard repeatedly is if you want people to eat at restaurants will tell us we need people here during the day because we need a lunch crowd, because you can't run a restaurant just on an evening crowd. Well, how do you get a lunch crowd? Office space. So that's kind of, the push on the office space thing. And, thinking about building office space, that can be really tricky. And so the addition of the mixed use, I think, is appropriate because then you can still get that office space, but you might be more likely to get it if you allow that mixed use. So I'm generally supportive of that. And I'm really pleased with the governor's district. Again, people talk about revitalizing this. And again, really have always wanted to see more action down here, but we don't build businesses. But this policy, I think, can go in a long way to try to move and encourage people to do that, and hopefully help us land some businesses who are interested. And so I'm also supportive of that. The last thing I'll say is you kind of said our investment. Just for clarity, we're not really investing. We're not really spending our money. We don't give the businesses money to do this. The business builds. Because they build, the evaluation goes up. That increase in tax, they pay the city, and then we reimburse that chunk back to them under these terms. But we're not robbing from other sources of revenue to do this. And so just clarity on that, because I was very sensitive about that until I kind of understood that when I first started. So I think that's also just important to know. But otherwise, Katie, I really appreciate your work on this, and I feel encouraged about what we're trying to achieve here with these things. But I'll open it up to council for questions and comments.
I also appreciate it. I echo a lot of the comments Mayor Gish made. Economic development policy is really hard. It kind of goes cyclically, it seems like, that you're competing with every other community, right? And the state is competing with every other state, and nobody's willing to lay down all their arms and go nothing. And yet the cost to build all of these things continues to go up. And then we hear about affordability, and it's kind of all driving everything, right? And so a couple of things on this one, Katie, that I just had some questions on. So I can appreciate the desire to really limit those legal fees within the governor's district.
Mm-hmm.
I hesitate to go to nothing. And here's the reason. Conceivably, you could get to a point where someone is proposing a project, and occasionally projects are proposed and then they don't come to fruition. And so having some skin in the game seems to be reasonable, so that we don't get to a point where we expend legal resources, we get to an agreement, and then a project maybe gets shelved, and we're just kind of out for a time period, at least the entire legal bill. Probably not something that happens a ton, but we have had businesses that, Panera was going to come to town, and now Panera's not here in town.
Yeah.
I'm sad about that because I like baked goods.
Yeah,
but,
I'm sad too.
But nonetheless, something there seems reasonable, even if we're eating a large part of that. I do appreciate your idea to try to really get kind of a set standard document that we don't have to. Gosh, these legal fees, just crazy. That's looking at you there.
It's
Tom.
not that attorney.
I know it's not that attorney, but man, those attorneys, we have to give attorneys a hard time.
I know.
Regardless whether they're our city attorney or the bond attorneys or any other legal officials. But I do appreciate that. I think that makes all the sense in the world. And then the only other comment I think I had was we've gone, in my 10 years on the council, we have gone all over the place on incentives, and we've had requests for more clarity, and then we want flexibility and clarity and flexibility and clarity and flexibility. And it's really hard because as a business looking, the feedback that we get is if you have too much flexibility and you don't put some concrete things out there, then a business that happens to be like window shopping looks at you in your website and what you have available. They look at your neighbor and they're like, well, the neighbor lays it all out there. I know exactly what I'm getting over there, but I don't know what I'm getting over here. And rarely do they think it could be better. They generally think, oh, it's probably going to be worse, so I'll go with what I can see. And so we have had to evolve over the past 10 years, I would say, at the push of our economic development community to really identify, hey, what are we offering? And yes, the council has the final say, which I think is important, but it's helpful to have actual policies that are written out so that when prospective developers are looking at our community, they have some semblance of an idea of what they can expect. I've also heard from the development community that it does matter. When you're looking at your pro forma for a community that doesn't offer an incentive, and you can go next door to a different community that does offer an incentive, especially in the early years. Note that a lot of your policies are 5-year and then they're sliding scale. those early years are difficult for any business, regardless of what it is. And so to bridge that gap, to kind of provide some helpful financing, if you will, there helps the pro forma work and absolutely provides a bit of a safety for a business that's looking to invest, as Mr. Gish said, many times millions of dollars into our community, that they are working with their local banks to get that financing and investing their own capital. It's not the city's money, it's that private sector money. So I appreciate that. The only other area, aside from not eliminating totally the legal fees, would be on the amount of the 30,000 number for mixed use. It seems high. And I think what we're probably trying to solve for is, I don't think the intent is to say, hey, here's a strip mall.
Correct.
And that gets an incentive. Now that's a discussion topic. Maybe we do want to incentivize that. Maybe we don't. 30,000 square foot buildings, a real expensive building, especially considering the design criteria and standards that we have here in Grimes. So as compared to other communities, you can't build a 30,000 square foot metal sided building in Grimes and get an incentive for it. That's not in our policy. So most of these areas, a 30,000 square foot building is probably, in the tune of $10+ million. That is a lot of money. And we are, I think, by having that number that high, potentially not allowing for somebody who maybe doesn't have the pro forma to take the risk for that expensive of a building, but maybe want something a little bit shy of that. So I don't know what that number is. Obviously, you've done some research around. It's probably north of 10. I don't know that 30. That seems high to me. That's my only feedback.
No, I think that's helpful because you're right. At some point, you do research, you attempt to right size it for the market, and then thankfully with the policy, it sets a direction. But it is, it is flexible. So if someone were to say, "I'm doing a 25,000 square foot building and it fits all these requirements, would this be eligible?" I think we look at those on a case by case basis and say, absolutely, this is a project we want. Maybe it's not the full 10 years. Maybe it's negotiated to a different rate. I think that helps us. I think with a 10-year office incentive, it's an extremely strong incentive. And so setting a high bar and painting that picture for people, we want this, like we were talking about, to add that significant daytime population. You can still have significant daytime population. I think the lowest I'd probably be comfortable with is 20 to still have, 10,000 foot floor plates from a retail and office perspective, I think is realistic. I think if you get too low, then the cost really gets out of whack. And there's just a whole bunch of things that would become challenging with a smaller building. So for me, 20,000 would be a lower limit. But that's something we can take a look at. And the nice thing about tonight is this is an initial set, and then we'll be coming back with additional changes and tweaks we can update next time as well.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the 20,000 or somewhere between 20 and 30. Again, I don't necessarily have a magic number, but similar to my comment before, if we're looking at other communities, again, I don't know exactly what every other community is, but I would hate to scare somebody away who's like, oh, I was looking at a 25,000 square foot building. An additional 5,000 square foot, one, you have to have space on whatever lot that they're looking at to make that achievable. And then two, I wouldn't want them not to look at Grimes because they're in the 20 to 25,000 square foot realm and not hitting that 30.
Great, that's helpful.
I think for me, first off, great job. I think it's some work that needed to be done for a while. I knew it was a lot of effort on your part just to get here. Question I had was on the 2,500. How many agreements do we know, like from last year, that would have gotten like the 2,500 off?
Yeah, so the agreement that will be before you next council meeting, the one with Brookside Village North. So that one we actually wrote a little bit differently to recognize that we had the city generated a significant amount of fees in needing legal services to help figure out how to structure that deal. So that agreement is structured as a 50-50 cost share. And that has a 10,000 cap for that developer on that. So that's the example I would have from last year. That was moving towards getting us to having a cost share mechanism, but was recognizing that we had an inordinately high amount of fees on that.
I got you. So it really only would have been one from last year is kind of what you're saying.
Yep.
So, okay. So that's what I needed. Thank you.
I did have another question. I apologize.
Yes, that's okay.
For the governor's district,
yes,
commercial on the bottom, residential on the top, that would
Yep.
qualify for this incentive as written.
Yep.
From a tax perspective, so typically we've not incentivized residential. And the reason for that is your commercial, of course, is valued at 90%. You pay a much higher property tax for commercial development than you do for residential. It's a very slippery slope on the residential side. And we haven't historically had an issue with housing stock. A lot of people want to move. If I recall correctly, for mixed use buildings where you have residential on the top and commercial on the bottom, is that's subdivided, right? From a tax perspective. So you're paying commercial property taxes on the first floor and then a residential rate, including the rollback. So about 50% of valuation on.
I believe so, but I can get back to you on that. And Tom, I don't know if you have a knowledge around that. No. Okay. Yeah.
That's my understanding. I believe
that's my thought too, but I wouldn't want to say for sure, but that's my thought.
So my concern on adding that in is we're theoretically then incentivizing residential. Maybe that's prerogative that we want. I don't
only
know
if I will say only if it comes with commercial.
Yeah.
So it's a package deal in this instance.
In this district to create a more walkable atmosphere.
Yeah. I guess the reason I bring that up is we just got done talking about the need for daytime employment, and I get affordability and housing stock as well. Again, I just don't know that I typically have not felt comfortable providing incentives. Newsflash, like everybody already knows, but I don't like providing incentives for residential.
Right.
So we talked about office space. I'm all for it if they want to do, second story office, again, because that would all be commercial tax base. It also provides daytime employment opportunities and all the other benefits that we just talked about wanting to incentivize. I'm not opposed to kind of the walkable, livable districts. I just don't know that incentives for second story apartments or condos is something that I feel comfortable with. I would tend to tell you on the spectrum, I would lean much more toward no on that than toward yes. So for what it's worth.
Yeah. And I'm happy to address that a little bit. We did get some comments during the downtown assessment from developers of, I think in general, you ask most developers, they'll say, well, more is always better on incentives, and that's fair. But digging down to what makes the most sense, they said they really need in the mixed use setup, they really need the upper floor residential units to help the product cash flow. So that was an interesting feedback that we received. The downtown assessment also wanted to see additional, 24/7 activity in the governor's district. And you get that by adding, I think, a responsible number of additional housing units to the district. So I think it helps combine both of those desires. But I understand your position.
It's interesting because we're really coming full circle on like turn of the 1900s there. Every small town downtown had commercial on the first floor, and then they had 1-2 stories, your brick buildings on any small town that was residential. I think my parents, for instance, lived in some of that residential once they got married in small town Iowa. It then went away and it was all vacant as it is in my small town that I grew up in, and now people are trying to bring it back a little bit. So it's interesting. It all comes full circle, but
it's a circle of life, Eric. Other questions or comments?
The only comment I had, so given what you presented, should we choose to support resolution 02-4026, is it as written? Are we modifying anything? I guess that's what I would have a question for, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. My recommendation, but Mr. Henderson as legal counsel, maybe you could weigh in. You could try to take a stab at amending it. I'm not sure I feel comfortable trying to amend and find the sweet spot on the fly unless there's just really good common ground here. The other idea might be, this isn't super time sensitive, and so I would possibly recommend tabling it. Have a motion to table, and we could come back the next meeting after getting some one-on-one conversations to kind of land it. Tom, do you have any recommendations on that legally?
Mr. Mayor, you hit it on the head. They can either take it up and amend it tonight, or you can move to postpone it to the next meeting and bring it back with maybe a chance to have some comments. Those are your two options, I think.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable with either, but just, a time sensitivity. I don't want to drag out a debate on trying to land the amendments when we could do that with some, one-on-one conversation over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think Eric's brought up some good points. I'd feel more comfortable holding off 2 weeks while we discuss some of those minor changes that we might be more palatable for a final resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I feel comfortable trying to hit an amendment tonight.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. And
but
with that being said, I feel like the general consensus of the council is really a job well done, Katie, and brought us a good product. We just want to finesse it a little bit. So please don't be offended or think that we're
that's great.
not satisfied.
No, feedback is good.
But with that, council, is there a motion to table the resolution until the next meeting?
I'll make a motion that we table resolution 02-4026 to the following meeting.
I'll second. Question on that. Would the resolution number change if the policy changed, or will it stay the same? So we can table this resolution for this policy and just change the contents of the policy and keep the resolution number.
Keep it. Okay.
Good question. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Borkerty.
Aye.
Lovelady.
Aye.
DePhillips. Aye. Johansson.
Aye.
Earlbeck.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes, so that'll be tabled until the next meeting. So thank you for the discussion, everybody. That brings us to item 6, resolution 02-4126, approving final plot of Ryder Logistics Center Plot 2 and certain related easements and agreements. Olivia.
All right. This final plat is generally located south of Southeast 37th Street, east of James, and just west of Southeast Beiser Drive. The zoning for this property is M1A, which is a commercial and limited light industrial. Just to recap some of the history about this particular property, the rezoning for the property, which included kind of that purple as well, started and was approved by council in September 21. And then from there, Lot 1, which is that purple again, was approved by council 22 in March. And then which brought us to some of the infrastructure construction in 2022 as well. And then the final plat again for that first lot was approved by council in 23. And then more recently in December, council approved RISE grants that were acquired to build the Southeast 41st Street and Southeast Park Drive, which you'll see on the plans, but goes south is Southeast Park, and then 41st kind of goes across the property like that, which brings us to tonight's proposal for the final plat for the rest of the property. Here's the final plat with north facing the left side of the screen here. This final plat divides the lots into two developable lots and then one street lot. The street lot will be dedicated to the city for right of way, and then we also have a couple easements. We have a PUE, public utility easement, sidewalk 2 storm sewer easements and then a temporary construction easement. Not a part of this project, but to note, Southeast Park Drive and Southeast 41st Street extensions will be constructed in 2026 here, coming soon. This just goes to show some of the utilities that are already in place, which include some of the water main going along Park Street or Park Drive and 41st Street. With the coming road construction projects, they'll be putting in some storm sewer and some other infrastructure as well. Other than that, I do not have anything else to add other than staff would recommend approval. And then we also have representation from the applicant as well tonight.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments or action?
Just one question. Obviously, a lot of truck traffic in these areas. Is the turn lanes as we look at where it connects to Southeast 37th, do we have enough width there, almost like a fanning effect, so that we're not having this, issue where you've got the gravel pit and every semi hits the same little corner right as it abuts the cement, and all of a sudden there's like this massive sinkhole there?
In my in my position, I have only been a part of the plat. Matt can come up and talk about the road construction. With this plat, the turn lanes and everything for Park Drive are in the first plat.
Yeah, I do believe they did the design with the turning radius for trucks, because obviously this area is full of trucks with all the stuff on Visor. And so they have those radiuses a little larger than we would normally have done. So we don't have that problem where the back end of the truck is basically making a mud pit behind the back of curb or crushing up the sidewalk ramps.
And could you refresh my memory? Where does we've improved from James Street down a little ways on 37th, but we haven't done the middle section. This is in the middle section, right? That hasn't
on
been
37th or James?
On 37th, that hasn't been improved.
Yes. So this one is kind of an important piece to get done ahead of that piece, which we call the West Gap. And it kind of ends there where Prairie Business Park is, kind of up to just shy of Gateway. And having this piece in place and these streets done will give us some flexibility if for some reason Visor has to be closed for some kind of part of the construction for something.
Detour route. Yeah.
And so the truck could go over through on 41st Street and get to James and exit out that way if they need to.
Yeah, that's good because we're doing 37 east this year, correct? And then the idea is next year would potentially be tackling this portion.
7th East Gap is designed this year, and then we'll start building that one next year, and then we'll start the design of this one next year, and then following year do the building of that one.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
Yep.
That for me. Yep. Questions? Any other further questions or action?
I'll move resolution 02-4126 approving final plat of Ryder Logistics Center Plat 2 and certain related easements and agreements.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Workerding.
Aye.
Lovelady.
Aye.
Johansson.
Aye.
Earlbeck.
Aye.
DePhillips. Aye.
All right, that motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to item 7, second reading of ordinance 809 Brookside Village North Rezone. And Evan.
Yeah, so we talked about this last meeting. There have been no changes since the first reading. But this property is at the southeast corner of Northeast 18th Street and Highway 141, currently zoned to be rezoned to R4 PUD. The uses are compatible with the existing uses to the east, which is townhomes, and then the future commercial to the south. And then the proposed uses would also match what would be across on the west side of 141. The proposal is for high density along 141 Destination Drive, as Matt discussed earlier. We'll go through the property, and then some medium density would be on the east side, which would match up with the existing medium density to the east. Trail connections would be provided along Destination to connect to the existing trail network and then lead to North Point Park. Landscape buffering for the for the medium density area would depend on the orientation of the building. So if you have rear yards facing the public street, there'd be berm and buffer. And if there's more like front oriented to the public street, they would have just like the typical street trees or frontage trees. This property is not required to, or at least in the comp plan does not show parkland dedication. The proposal would be to provide fee in lieu to be used for improvements to North Point Park. I did measure how far North Point Park is from this development. It's a quarter mile to the north portion of the development, and then closer to a half mile to the south. And then just to reiterate that 18th Street will be closed as part of a DOT project and our city project for Destination. And then this portion of Point Drive will be vacated and will remain a private access as shown today. It just won't be a city-owned right-of-way. The medium density would be for attached or detached townhomes at 8 dwelling units per acre. The high density would be for multifamily units at up to 20 units per acre. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Staff would recommend approval.
Thank you. And so just to note that this is like a mix of these different residential uses, but there is that chunk right next to the roundabout that's opened by a different by a different developer, and that is planned to be commercial.
Yep, this on the corner.
So if that matters or not, but just like to point that out, that the intent of some of the design of that area still remains with that plot. So, council, any questions or comments in the second reading?
Yeah, so I did have a couple of citizens reach out to me and have some concern about the distance from the development that's going to be happening there to the distance to the park. So you're saying that one route is a quarter mile, second route's a half mile roughly to the park?
Yeah, so if you went from the south end all the way up, it would be half, and then from this top edge to the park would be quarter mile.
Okay. Now, I know we talked about what's actually going to be developed there. Do we have any indication on that developer's appetite to put in their own little tiny one, or if they've done that in the past?
I don't have details for that, but I don't know if the developer has any comments at this time for that.
Brian Atwood, I'm with Signature Companies in Grimes here. We have done playgrounds in the past when space allows for it. So we typically just kind of assess what we have in for space, kind of amenities we're going to propose. So we'll often do playground or a dog park or sometimes a combination of all. So.
Okay. Yep. All right. Thank you. Evan, I did have one question. So because we're vacating 18th Street up there, which is directly adjacent to this lot, how does that work? Is it from the Centerline Road would come back to the property on the south when we vacate that, so they would get to use that space?
That is the typical practice. I am working with our legal counsel and kind of what the route is for this particular project. But yes, typically it would go half and half. This one's a little bit different than what I've normally worked with, is whereas half of it's Grimes, half of it's Polk County. So, I mean, we can do what we want to do with our half, but if Polk County still has theirs, you know, they could technically keep their half, which I don't know what their desire would be on this project yet. Still, we're kind of working through all that, but I have been in contact with our attorneys on that.
So would that modify the design of the detention? And the reason I say that is what we don't necessarily want to happen, and we just had the developer talk about space, right? And how do we utilize and maximize space?
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily behoove us to henceforth and forevermore drive by there and be like, oh, that's where the old road is. There's nothing there. And it just looks like there was an old road. Ideally, that becomes blended into the facade for both the north and the south property.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something we're looking at. The kind of maybe hiccup is that there are existing utilities in that right of way. So it would just be a matter of can they be moved to more be better efficient with how the property is developed.
And is it feasible?
Yeah, I think the cost may be high, but we're still kind of looking at that stuff.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Any further questions or action?
I'll move the second reading of ordinance 809, Brookside Village North rezone.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Johansson.
Aye.
DePhilip. Aye. Earlbeck.
Aye.
Lovelady.
Aye.
Workerding.
Aye. All right, that passes. That brings us to item 8, Grimes Strategic Plan Communications Update.
Yeah, this isn't super detailed. I don't have a bunch of slides for you, but we talk about the strategic plan a lot. You know, a number of you on the council are tenured and have been through our consultant strategic planning sessions a number of times, but we do have some new members, and we wanted to spend a little bit of time just talking about the communications surrounding the strategic plan. It is a document that the council uses obviously to weigh in on certain policy decisions or capital projects or major initiatives. Conversely, it's a tool that staff use almost regularly on the daily basis. It's our work plan for the year. What are we getting done? It's very detailed in terms of like steps and you know, in order to bring you guys actionable plans that you can weigh in and consider on. So you know, again, it's a process that we go through annually. But as it relates to the communication, we wanted to give the new folks just a little bit of feedback on like how we bring it to you throughout the year. So there are various times throughout the year, really starting in about that May timeframe when we have a large kind of Q2 workshop where we're bringing you guys a variety of topics that we are seeking input on, or need direction on, you know, based on whatever was been in the plan from the previous year. That allows us kind of that mid-year check-in. We continue to work obviously throughout the year on it. Typically in that September timeframe, we're coming back to you again with another update and a council meeting about progress that we've made. Maybe there's some touch points. We're also giving you, you know, maybe some feedback on items that based on you know, our own technical expertise and our work groups that we work in throughout the year on things that maybe we want to consider for the following year to be incorporated in the plan. So that could be, you know, a good example would be the small cell stuff. You know, as we hear about new legislation or new requirements, those are initiatives we want to bring to the council for incorporation. So that just gives you a little bit of an overview on how we communicate throughout the year. As Mayor Gish alluded to earlier in the meeting, we did want to also make some enhancements on the accessibility of that plan itself. So there's a new webpage or a new site on our webpage that our wonderful communications director worked on. It will house all of the various elements of the plan, from major policy initiatives, management action items, projects, that type of thing. So there is a real nice place on the website that you can go to, get a copy of the plan, take a look at it, and then obviously can interact with the council and staff on questions they may have or anything like that. So that is all I had. I just wanted to give you a little update on how we use the plan, how we communicate about the plan, where folks can get it. So appreciate it. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. And just, you know, going with that strategic plan, it is a plan, but it is a living document. And it's not a set in stone document, because we have had instances where we gave guidance and said, hey, we think this could be beneficial, let's look into that. And then we look into that and we're like, oh yeah, no, that's not gonna work for X, Y, Z. So just to provide clarity about what the plan has power and meaning, but the plan is not the final word. And I think it's just important to note that as people can now hopefully peruse through it a little more accessibly, but just to put it in a proper context.
The other item that I'd note is that on all staff communications on any issue that's within the packet, I do appreciate that staff notes what or how that communication, how that action item is tied to the strategic plan. So whether it's beautification of the city, which is a goal of the council from the strategic plan, or creating more vibrant, walkable city, or whatever it is that we've said, hey, here's what we've taken as feedback from the general public on the type of community that they want. How does this policy or this action item tie into that? It may seem menial at times, I'm sure, from the staff perspective on having to fill out a form and think through how does this tie back to that plan, but it is helpful. So
Big kudos for getting this on the website too. I mean, we've heard tirelessly that more communication is needed, and I know that you guys are working on that. Whitney's one person and she does a lot as one person. And so I appreciate that you guys are doing that. It allows us to be able to respond to people too and say, we hear you. We're really trying to get more communication out there. It's not a transparency issue, but at some point it kind of becomes a capacity issue. But it also helps us to refer people back to spaces too. So appreciate you guys helping give us tools that we can share with community members too.
Any other comments? Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that. That brings us to item 9, staff reports.
As much as I'd like to give you a lengthy report tonight, I've got just one item for you. There is the beginnings of some regional effort to weigh in on the proposal by the railroad to abandon the Grimes spur all the way from the point up to Grimes. And so expect some proceedings on that in months to come. Want to participate via
Thank you. That's very exciting. And talking about trying to activate that, but there's been issues, and this will be the first hurdle. So
yeah, I mean, expect a very long process.
Fair enough.
Lots,
yes.
It's very capital intensive.
Yeah.
And resources are not.
Thank you for bringing me back to reality. Yeah. All right. So no other staff reports?
I have nothing.
Okay, thank you. Mayor and city council reports. The only thing I want to do is just report and say thank you to council and staff. We had a workshop on budget and taxation. It was a very lengthy conversation. We had to then roll it over into another day. And so I appreciate everybody being willing to come back to an unplanned meeting to sew that up. And so just thank you to everybody. With that, any other council reports?
I attended my first Metro Waste Authority board meeting, which I know was near and dear to your heart for a while. So interesting to get a new perspective for myself on that. And so one of the things they asked of us is to remind people of battery drop-off locations, which we have one. Don't throw your batteries in the trash. Very dangerous. Throw them in the receptacle. Is it here? Yes, here.
Does that include any battery, or are we
Yes.
just talking about?
They did talk about it, is that you can put any battery in there.
The only update I'd have from Central Iowa Waterworks. Yeah, it's exciting stuff. As a water producer, the board of Central Iowa Waterworks will be coming to Grimes here this week to tour our facility and get a better handle on the phenomenal water that we produce here in Grimes. We are one of the very few municipalities in the metro that is a water producer. And so, yeah, it'll be nice to show off what we've created here in Grimes. So.
Yeah, thank you.
I would just add that WRA has just selected their new executive director, Patrick Bean, I'm sorry, and he comes from Des Moines Public Works. And then also within that process, they appointed their longstanding engineer, James Beck, to the role of deputy director, which is a new position for the WRA that they haven't previously had. And that's in an effort of taking into consideration succession planning. So Patrick Bean, you'll probably be seeing his name around, and he's the new executive director for WRA.
Thank you, Leslie. We caught most of that, but it got a little staticky towards the end, but thank you.
Sounded like dial-up internet. Back in the day. Yeah.
So, but thank you for making the effort. I know when illnesses are going around, it's sometimes tough, so. Any other reports? All right, well, that brings us to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned.